Okay, so let's go ahead and call the meeting. Let's go ahead and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Meeting is being held virtually in accordance with, I think, Public Act 228 of 2020, amending the Open Meetings Act. And it's held in accordance with, I believe, the state of emergency declared by the Board of Commissioners for Ingham County, as well as, I think, City of East Lansing. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll go ahead and give a roll call. When you go ahead and announce your name, make sure you mention where you are at that time. I'm the chair, Alan Conceição. I reside in East Lansing. I'm here in East Lansing, Ingham County.
I'm Julian Van Dyke. I live in Lansing, but I'm in East Lansing right now.
Teresa, zooming in from East Lansing.
Meg Croft, zooming in from East Lansing.
Tetta Hughes, zooming in from Charlotte, Michigan. I live in East Lansing, Michigan.
Do we have anybody else on? I feel like there should be more people.
No, there are the 5 of you.
Okay.
And then Liam and I in the closed captioner.
Okay, sounds good. And then we have our attendees are in the attendee area. We don't have anybody here for public comment as of yet, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Liam, can you share the agenda for us? Thank you.
I was going to ask for that specifically. Yes. And is screen share going to be enabled? I don't know if each of the attendees is going to be providing, going through their kind of packet to review with us as well.
So I have the presentations in the agenda, so I can scroll through them.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So do we want to go ahead and start in the order in which the items are listed in the agenda?
We need to approve the agenda in minutes.
Oh, okay. Anybody want to add anything to the agenda prior to us beginning the meeting today?
Move to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Tetta Hughes, second.
All right. Let's go ahead and fill in. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, so we've got 5-0 approval to move forward on the agenda. I don't believe that we have, do we have minutes from the previous one that were attached to the agenda? I assume
Oh
that they're
no, it looks like I forgot to attach them.
there. Okay,
I'll put them on next month. I'm so sorry.
that's fine. I had gone through it before and I hadn't seen them then either.
Yeah.
Before we get into the business agenda, is there any new business anyone wants to bring up? No. Okay. So I know we're basically here to go through the items for the art selection committee for the mural today. I assume everyone wants to get started on that quickly. I do, for sure. Highly motivated to do so. Any comments from anyone before we start? I assume, are we letting in the attendees and then having them each present one at a time? Is that the plan?
Yep. My thought process, and of course you can do it however you want, but was that they would each get about 10 minutes to present. And then after their presentation, you could ask them questions, chat with them, and then we'd move on to the next person.
Okay.
And then once we get through all 4 of them, then they would there would only be one at a time that you could see their faces. And
Right.
then all 4 of them would be off of the main screen, and then you all could discuss and make your decision.
Okay, sounds good.
Mhm.
Any comments from anybody on the art selection committee? Anyone want to say anything incredibly inspirational or wonderful? Okay, I guess not. I guess we're going to get right into the process of going through and reviewing these. So I believe that the first one that I see on the agenda here is that of Ann Lewis. So I believe we'll start with her and she'll get her 10 minutes.
She's rejoining as a panelist now.
Fantastic.
Hi there, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Lovely. Hang on 1 second. Video is started. Okay. Well, hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Joanne,
Morning.
I guess I'll just jump right in unless you all want to say anything else before I get started.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you all for selecting me as one of the 4 finalists. It was wonderful to be able to actually watch you all discuss it in like real, because I think as artists, we never really see the process in which our work is selected or how people go through these things, because it's not public for the most part. So it was really wonderful to sort of watch that. Yeah, so I'll just get started. So the mural at this point is titled "Together We Are Sacred." I always tend to have my my murals be sort of the title is a sort of a work in progress until I'm done with the piece, because oftentimes when you're on the wall and interacting with the community in the space, oftentimes things change or they come up, or different things kind of inspire me as an artist. So the title, I do like it, but it is potentially could change if if during the process things kind of present themselves in other ways. But I do want to just explain sort of the way in which I design most of my public work is based on the Fibonacci sequence, because it is deeply rooted in nature and the way in which our human minds understand geometry. The Fibonacci sequence is typically a way in which it sort of democratizes the way in which people can appreciate work, because all of us are sort of attuned to this sort of geometric structure. So it's actually based on our human anatomy and the way most natural elements are designed by Mother Nature. So it often gives you an opportunity to really enjoy something just through a geometric perspective without even really realizing it's happening. So next slide, please. So when I was thinking about this concept of diversity and inclusion, I mean, it's such a broad topic, and there's so many different ways to approach sort of what I was looking at with East Lansing, because, there's so much history, not only in the land, but obviously within the indigenous communities that were there that got pushed out, and different communities that showed up and then were also pushed out. As well as the discussions around, the racial segregation of redlining. So I was really sitting there trying to understand, like, how do I incorporate all of these different conversations? As a white woman, it didn't feel appropriate for me to select one and make that more important than the other issues. So I was really trying to understand, from nature, how do we interact as people in a space that's, has so much negative history, but also has so much potential for a future that can be better. So I was really kind of considering, the tribalism of humanity and sort of how we're all sort of innately, I guess, like designed to sort of stay in these weird little groups. But as, I see how we're all sort of really pushing for social change, whether it be the George Floyd protests from last summer, or, all of the different sort of social justice issues that we've been, really shifting on in the last 20 or 30 years, what really kept coming back to me was that we're all humans and we're all people that, we all have our own stories, but we're also all able to really see that we can change and see that we can communicate and understand one another with more clarity than I think generations in the past have done so. So I kept kind of coming back to this, like, individual as a group, or individuals within a group sort of mentality. So next slide, please. Part of how I work is I spend tons of time researching upfront, and with this project, I was really curious about the indigenous communities that had been present in the area, and then again, there's so many stories of just, the colonization and the treaties that were just so horrendous. But what I kept realizing after I was reading, story after story, was that they were all written from the lens of a white male colonizer. And at some point I realized, like, well, how am I actually getting the true story of what these communities were experiencing? So I finally found a document called the, well, I actually have a link for it, but Andrew Blackbird was a native man who was the first to sort of write his own people's history. And from that document, which is hundreds of pages long, I found the Council of Three Fires and sort of the stories from that alliance. And it kind of stuck with me, the idea of like the Three Fires, the title just really kind of stuck in my brain. If you can go to the next slide, please. And then in parallel with that, the discussion that Elaine Hardy had given, or the presentation that Elaine Hardy had given all of the panelists, or all of the, sorry, the finalists around her diversity, inclusion, and equity presentation, the understanding that Lansing is, or East Lansing is considered a sundown town, whether in the past or still in the present, was horrifying to me, but also not surprising. And so it's hard to, want to tell these stories in a way that's not going to re-traumatize people. And that's something that I really take into consideration as a public artist. There's, you have to find the fine line of how you present the history of a space, but also offer the opportunity to consider the future of how we can do things differently. And so this image of a sun obviously kept coming back to me. And I kept thinking about, like, as a painting, it's a still image. So could it be rising? Could it be setting? You're not really quite sure. And so that was interesting to me because I think you can create it in a way visually that's hopeful and inspiring. So maybe you're thinking of a sunrise, or, but it also sort of alludes to that darker history that we obviously have so much work to continue to push forward with. Yeah, so I think next slide would be great, thanks. Again, so considering the sun as a representation of fire, I thought it was an interesting kind of connective tissue between the Council of Three Fires as well as the sundown discussion. And so within the design, I'm using sacred geometry within the design to sort of show the three councils with three different colorways of this sun image. And I also I went to East Lansing and photographed the wall myself from various different angles, because I felt it was important to understand that in some locations, you're not going to be able to see the whole wall. Or the whole mural. And so I really wanted to make sure I had a design that was understandable from every angle. And so that is present in the design as well. Next slide, please.
You have about 2 minutes left.
Great, okay, I will pick it up slightly. So yeah, again, using sacred geometry to sort of offer the discussion about, like, each circle within the sun is sort of an individual in a collective, right? So each dot might not be the fire that creates the change, but as a collective, I think we can really create, there's more power in the collective, I guess. Next slide, please. So the word humanity is also sort of hovering above the top of the sun structure on the wall. And I think, also to acknowledge the struggles of the LGBTQIA+ community. I've replaced the A in humanity with an X just to offer more of a discussion around inclusion. Next slide, please. And so this is sort of the mock-up, without the walls. And then if you, Liam, if you just want to sort of, run through those, you can see them from various different perspectives. And then the budget's pretty self-explanatory. I did do some research on getting a swing stage because of the challenges with the neighboring business. But I mean, it's really expensive, and the way in which swing stages work, they can only go a certain width. So because the wall is so wide, you'll actually have to move the swing stage halfway through the mural painting, which means you can only paint half the wall at a time, which as an artist is a really challenging thing to do, but also it's just prohibitively expensive. I mean, just moving the swing stage is like $3,800. So the swing stage itself is about half the budget if we are to use the swing stage. So just something to consider. I did also want to note that part of how I work as an activist artist is to offer, kind of put my money where my mouth is. And so a part of my budget does then go as a land tax to the Council of Three Fires as a, sign of appreciation for sharing the land with us. So, and I believe that's it. Oh, yep. And then the timeline, pretty self-explanatory. I know these things take longer than everybody thinks they will. So I have this budgeted to go towards the end of August. Typically the contracts take a lot longer than we think, and then the revisions always take longer than we think. So that's about it. Does anyone have questions?
I have a question. Thank you for your presentation and thanks for coordinating your color background to your mural concept. So I'm curious about the vibrancy of the colors. If they on the screen digitally, they're amplified by the backlit. If you anticipate them being as brilliant as in the design.
Absolutely, yeah. I will be using artist grade paint, which is if you think about sort of something like a house paint, like a Benjamin Moore, they typically can't get as vibrant of a color because they have so much talc in the paint. So the artist paints that I use are Nova paint, which is a specific, artist grade paint that's meant for murals outside. So there will also be a clear coat that goes on top of it to, maintain the UV protection of the paint. But these paints tend to last significantly longer than typical house paint. So the vibrancy is, it's a very, very high quality paint. So the vibrancy is maintained, and I can actually achieve that through mixing the paint myself.
Great, thank you.
Any questions from anyone else on the panel?
I have a comment really quick about the swing stage, boom stage thing. So we did notice that in all of the proposals that is a significant cost, and we're still working on alternatives. So yeah, we're aware of the huge fee that is associated with that, including the initial and permanent staging that has to occur when that happens. So thanks for bringing that up, Anne.
Sure. Yep.
All right, no other comments from any of the panelists? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our second applicant.
Thanks, Anne.
I believe we have Backpack Durden is next.
Yep, he's rejoining now.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
I'm
Fantastic.
Going as usual.
Perfect. Okay. So my name is Backpack. My pronouns are they, them. I'm very nervous, so I'm gonna try my best. I'll start with how I work, I guess. I like to do a lot of, I don't know, introspective, reflective, putting it out there, putting my narrative into things so that it's reflective of who I am and the community it inhabits. So when we got the diversity and inclusion talk, seminar, presentation, it gave me some things to jump off of. And so as a Black trans person, it was like, which way do I go? I could have it all if I find a newspaper. So I did a lot of researching and found some archival photos of Dr. Robert Greene and Martin Luther King when they were together at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta. And I was like, yo, this is perfect. This is perfect. I can use this. And so I found some headlines from this year from the Lansing State Journal, and I put them on the newspaper. They're kind of placeholders, but they are also in the running. And I feel like it's what the community has done, and it is what I am reaping the benefits of, and I feel grateful, honestly. And so in a lot of my work, I put a triangle, and it's a representation of time and change, like delta, I guess. Not I guess, I know. But so the triangle in this situation denotes time and the fight for civil rights that they were a part of, and how it affects us now, and it's in color. So yeah, that's what I got. If you go to the next slide, I think, yeah, that's how it would look on the building. I put like a neonish green triangle just to, so you could see where it was in the composition, but I am not opposed to changing it to a different green, because go green, I guess.
I respect
yeah.
I respect the awareness of the audience. That's good.
Read the room. Yeah. Also, my brother and my sister-in-law made sure that I said that, and I was like, "All right, I got you." Whatever, no problem. No sweat off my back. But yeah, and Dr. Greene is like, he's really cool. I watch a lot of his talks, and he was just like leaning back in a chair, just talking. I was like, yeah, I want to paint this guy. And then yeah, so found a great photo. If you go to the next slide, I think is the budget. Yeah, and then I reached out to someone about the suspended scaffolding, and they never got back yet. But as Anne said, it is more of a headache than it is helpful. And yeah, and I think, yeah, that's that. I don't know if I have another slide. Nope. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
back. I have a question.
Yeah.
Could we go back? Do you mind going back, Liam, to the image of the mural on the building, the projection? Sorry. Actually, I've kind of, my question is a little bit in conflict, because one of the things I really like about your design is that it doesn't confine itself to the rectangle of the building. But what I also am curious about is that the color of the building seems to like swallow the figures. And
Right.
if your plan was to leave the color of the building as is, or if you could modify that so that the figures would pop.
Yeah. I mean, I could do that for sure. I think I was in conflict between trying to preserve the archival like photography and boosting the contrast, because I love like boosting the contrast to no other. And there's like darks and lights, like, but yeah, I could do that for sure. And then it would definitely just pop off the wall. It'll look like real people are staring at a newspaper.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about the archival nature of the photographs. So what I was wondering more was about the background color of the building, like if that could be modified and the figures then would pop off.
I could do that too. I'd have to think about a better color than regular gray, but yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, thanks for your proposal. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the team? I really like to cede it to everybody else in the team because, I'm a white guy. I can talk forever. It's just kind of like general purpose. Everybody expects that.
I like the concept of the newspaper, because when you first threw it up there, like, wait a minute, did that? And I didn't want to sound awkward, because that could have,
What?
Reverend King, he stood for so many issues, and as a society, we weren't up on them.
No, I can't do it in the legal context, but I can do it in a subpoenaed media.
In front of us, so I kind of looked, I tried to check it and not say anything, but I think I like that concept of the newspaper, and it could be, you know, any time, any era. I think it's really cool. Again, I'm with Teresa, and I've seen your previous work, but that's just the artist in me. Like, I'd rather see that. I appreciate both concepts, you know. I always like the color like that, so that'd be cool, you know. So yeah.
Cool.
All right, anybody else? Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And we will discuss it further here. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our third individual. I believe that is Dustin Hunt, I want to say. Is that correct? I don't know if you were really
Yes,
bad.
that's correct. He's rejoining now.
Fantastic. Good. I don't feel awkward afterwards. It's positive.
Hey, y'all. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you just fine.
Is it possible to screen share with y'all? Because I have like my proposal isn't necessarily in like presentation mode, but I have some slides I could share.
Unfortunately, only hosts in this kind of setting can screen share. So Liam and I are the only ones who can.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, is what you want to share in the slides that you shared previously?
No. There's just kind of like some additional pieces I wanted to kind of walk through a little bit.
If you want to quickly email them to us, I guess.
Okay,
And
I'm looking at a share screen right now.
Yeah, that's me sharing my screen. So I can share my screen and Heather can share her screen, but we're the only two that can.
Okay. I'll just go ahead without it. That's all right, and we can just have some of the proposal slides up.
Okay.
Okay. I guess just first off, I just want to say thanks for the process of this public art project that y'all have put together. As was mentioned before, like very rarely do we get to know what's happening. We just kind of get a final decision without understanding the whole process. So thanks for what y'all have done. And I as well, I kind of just dive quickly into research and archives. And so while learning about Robert Greene, I quickly began to understand his deep impact and the decades of work that he put into civil rights. And I loved how pragmatic he was and how he used every opportunity to put pressure on oppressive laws and systems. Listening to him speak in more recent interviews of inspiration he gets from younger generations of activists is also inspiring and motivational. So I'm prepping for this proposal. I'm diving through a bunch of archives, learning of white allies that stood with Greene, namely John Dooley, learning of the beginning and continuation of women holding positions of power in city government, learned of the ban on discrimination based on sexual orientation, and I'm feeling more hopeful. I'm getting excited about the project. I'm also reflecting on my experience of growing up in Spartan Village apartments way back in the 90s, where I attended Spartan Village Elementary and Hannah Middle School. And if you don't know, at the time, Spartan Village, it was at full capacity. Right now, it's at about a fifth of what it was. There were about 1,500 apartment units that extended all the way out to Harrison. It was buzzing with kids from over 40, 45 countries.
I'm sitting in Spartan Village right now in the community center, but go ahead.
Yeah. So back then it was like buzzing with kids, and we were, you know, hopping in and out of each other's apartments, potlucks, watching the adults play soccer and cricket every evening. So in a sense, it like really was this village that raised us, and not just us, like our families got to grow up in this really wonderful environment. It was a unique and special time.
It's a ghost town right now.
It's so different
the office
being
right
there.
now.
So different, man. When I'm there, I just kind of like hear laughter, I smell food, and I just, you know, a lot of reminiscing. But I think about that time there, just kind of reflecting, and I wonder if that would have been possible at that time if it weren't for Robert Greene and his work in the 60s. And then I'm reflecting on my mom and her partner, a Lebanese woman from Detroit who helped raise us in that tiny apartment in Spartan Village. And I wonder, you know, if there may have been more challenges that they faced if it weren't for the protections for LGBTQ folks in East Lansing, in that work that was done in the 70s. So, you know, I'm building this web of archival information and personal experience and seeing this ripple effect of social justice work. And I'm feeling even more excited about the project. And then we have a heavy news week, and I recognize the most recent victim killed at the hands of police. They were a student of mine. And not just a student of mine, but they were a student to many of us, a friend to many, a part of a family and a community, and my sense of hope is leveled at that point. And I'm reflecting, I'm processing, I'm walking around my neighborhood in East Lansing, and I'm stuck feeling like this is the same systemic violence that Greene committed his life's work towards defeating. And I think about the honest conversations that were being had in the safety of Greene's home around his kitchen table. These are probably similar conversations being had right now in other people's kitchens. I'm trying to figure out how to celebrate the legacy of this work and draw parallels to right now, and how to draw attention to the need for change right now, and the need for white folks to understand their role in systems of oppression that reward them for their ignorance and complacency. And this is all heavy stuff, and part of my work is to balance this heavy content with intriguing and inspiring imagery. If y'all could go to, I think it's the 4th page of my proposal. Yeah, just with the design. So this is what I landed on for my design. The first impression is aimed at adding a fresh, vibrant, contemporary mural to East Lansing skyline through color, shape, composition. The setting is meant to be familiar and relatable. My design depicts a conversation taking place around a kitchen table. An African-American woman leads the conversation while younger siblings are observing, along with an older, wise African-American man listening. And this signifies a shift from male-dominated organizing of past generations to an intersectional approach to activism more common today. There are artifacts from civil rights organizing laid out on the table. Because the wall faces east, I wanted to include a sun feature as a nod to Potawatomi heritage. East is where the sun comes up and is thought to inspire learning and knowledge of all things. And I wanted to contrast the sunrise with the colors of sunset oozing into the kitchen, a kind of a reminder of darkness that threatens some communities, and a reminder that East Lansing was, and in some ways still is, considered a sundown town. The conversation is being directed towards the viewers to invite them into the kitchen. And this mural, it'll have unique viewing opportunities. So I propose creating an interactive component to increase access into the mural. At the base, there could be a vinyl shape affixed to the wall with a QR code, and the code could bring you to a site with a digital version of the mural. And the site allows viewers to dive into the mural in 3 different ways. One way is to learn more about the red dots embedded throughout the mural. And these are concepts or artifacts, such as information about the Negro motorist Green Book. A second way into the mural Viewers would have the option to learn more about historical events that have a specific site associated to them. So folks might be out and about and notice a dot at Pinecrest Elementary or City Hall, scan a QR code, and then be directed to historical information and have the chance to tap into other points on the site or around the city. The site would give contextual information to concepts and events that are noteworthy, such as Pinecrest being integrated. Information around discriminatory practices that made it possible to restrict African Americans' access to equal housing and education could acknowledge a bigger picture, though, one that is unflinching and just honest of East Lansing's history. And this is without indicting certain white people. This is information that could bring attention to whiteness in a useful way. Greene talks about how some of his white colleagues at MSU showed up to city council meetings to advocate for the continuation of covenants that restricted African Americans from purchasing homes in East Lansing.
You've got about 2 minutes left, just so you know.
Okay. His white colleagues argue that these covenants were about keeping neighborhoods and schools safe. This is a bit of contextual information that is useful in drawing out specific ways systemic racism lives on and could illuminate parallels between the 60s and right now. It could acknowledge past and ongoing harm with an aim to repair current and future relations. In this reckoning, I hope people would begin or continue to question their role within systemic racism and oppression. A third way viewers can dive into the mural is learning more about the models who have also been impacted from civil rights work here in East Lansing. These would be stylized photos with contemporary stories from African American folks that live here now. And I think this creates a sort of bridge, bridging the decades worth of civil rights work up until today. And I would work with a photographer specializing in people-centric, story-driven photography. These photos would be stylized to capture the life and beauty of a few East Lansing residents to include as subjects in the final design and in the virtual component. And I'm proposing to use a small percentage of the budget to cover the cost of building a simple site, where the site lives and the contents involved, maintenance, that would all be negotiable and ironed out up front. And this, honestly, this is just a component that I've had in my brain for a number of years now, and I'd love to just execute it to add to access to the mural. And with that, thanks for your time. And if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks for your proposal, Dustin. I enjoyed it. I do have a question. The numbers, is there a significance to is there 68, 70? Is that a year or is that something else?
Yeah, the numbers would be associated with years. And I just want to say, like, the numbers and the artifacts, I would love those to be like community driven. So it's not just me determining what specific years to focus on, but I would be the one kind of developing a way to incorporate them into the mural. But yeah, the numbers signify a specific year. And the idea is, like, you're at Pinecrest Elementary, you see the number 63, and you see that this school was integrated in 1963, but you're also given this contextual information to learn kind of like the landscape at the time while you're in that specific site. So hopefully there's like some parallels people are sensing or picking up. So it's kind of like this experiential thing that this site could offer.
Thanks.
Any other comments from any of the other panelists? All right, well, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.
Sweet, thanks y'all.
We will move on to our final panel.
You're muted, Alan.
Sorry about that. So we'll go ahead and move on to our final applicant or final proposal.
Hello, guys.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, and you?
Doing fantastic.
Thank you. Like everybody else said, thank you guys for your transparency. Because it is rare. I have hundreds of applications I've done. This is literally the only one that's actually been transparent about their process. And also, thanks for giving me the opportunity to learn about Dr. Greene, because I'm embarrassed to say that I did not know about him before this project. And he's a legend that's been instrumental in even my own education without me even knowing it. So it was definitely a blessing to learn more about him and his legacy. But I'm gonna get right to it since I only have 10 minutes. Can we go to page 14? Get to go straight to the design.
Ooh. Oh man.
Yeah, that page. So this piece I entitled First Class. I read Dr. Greene's, one of his books, At the Crossroads of Fear and Freedom. And what he said when he saw Dr. King's monument in Washington, D.C. was that it was first class, meaning that it was amazing and great that they're honoring one of the biggest heroes of this country. And I feel like that same thing can be said about him on a smaller scale with this piece that I created. So if we go from the outside in, I wanted to focus on all the things I learned about him from reading his book and his books and listening to his interviews, which was that he was a very learned person, and he also knew a lot about the civil rights movement because he was a part of it when he was in school. So from the outside in, the outside is a silhouette of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King that he's like laid in front of because Dr. King was the one that kind of inspired him to join the civil rights movement. And from there, you can see like the black and white areas. And that's just to give contrast to all the color areas, to give a subtle nod to Dr. Greene integrating East Lansing. And there's still places across the country that are not integrated. So those black and white areas are the parts that we have to do the work in. And from there, I have like a bunch of green flowers, and you can see the 313, which is a reference to him being from Detroit. And on the right, you can see the Michigan State logo because he was a esteemed alum. He has a bunch of ties. He worked there, and he was a dean there as well. And around those two pieces, you can see the various flowers and the football and the tennis ball on the opposite side. The football represents his time advocating for athletes and the Big Ten Conference to have better recruiting practices and better practices like actual physical practices where all of the students of colors or athletes of color didn't have to compete against each other so fiercely for one position, that there'd be equal opportunities across the board. And on the right side is a subtle nod to his time with Arthur Ashe and the work he did to help end apartheid in South Africa. So inside both of those things, I took quotes from his book about social injustice and how education is tied to social justice. And as you get closer, it's just a portrait of him from his book, of him in his younger days. And I thought it would just be a good nod to have him in the focal point, and have him looking at the viewer so they can do what Dr. King told him to do: be calm, be patient, and to think. So I took that ethos through the entire piece. I wanted to have calming colors in the blues and greens and make the viewer think about what they're seeing and try to figure out who they're looking at and learn more about them like I did. So that was pretty much it. If you go down to the next page, you can see like a zoomed in version, and below those are like mock-ups of how it will look in the space. And then I think there's another one. Yeah, that one too. They're not mocked to scale. They're just going so you can get a general feel of how it will look. And I have the budget and stuff, but I didn't get like a number on the swing lift. But if we're going by what Ann was saying, it's super expensive. I reached out to company after company, but I couldn't get like a hard number on how much it would cost. And I typically use a mix of exterior paint, house paint with primer inside of it. So it has like a long lasting effect and has like all of the UV protections in the paint itself. And spray paint as well. I would use a specific type of Montana spray paint that has like that endures it endures high temperatures and low temperatures very easily. So yeah, I'm just excited to, like I said, to learn more about them, because it was just a wealth of knowledge that I didn't have before. And it's just been a great opportunity. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your proposal in DBC. I really enjoyed it. I do have a couple questions. Well, I also enjoyed the that you didn't hold to the rectangle of the building. I liked that Dr. Greene felt like he was rising out from behind the other buildings. I was curious what those red forms behind his head in the background were. I maybe missed it in your description, but if you could describe what those are.
Yeah, it was just the form is one form altogether, but it's a silhouette that I outlined of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King. So it's a man, Dr. King on the left side and Coretta Scott King on the right, but it's like very, very subtle. And I put the red just to contrast all of the green, so it pops out from the wall as well.
Sure. Yeah, I wonder if in a a revision that could be a little clearer, because I really like what you would say as it's kind of an allusion to them, maybe like an echo of other figures that are really important in the civil rights movement. But I found it a little harder to read, but I wonder if there could be a little like a happy medium between that allusion and just a little more clear.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Thanks though, I really enjoyed it.
Any other questions for the panelists? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Another fantastic proposal. So we're going to have lots of challenges here. And again, thank you again for presenting. It's fantastic. All right, so this is the part where we get to make a decision, isn't it?
I think they did their homework. I think for our youth, and I want to congratulate the panel to include Dr. Greene, because I think we lose our connection of tying that into our history. And I talked with Dr. Greene. It's me and Dr. Greene came down to my show last year at Detroit, and I talked with him, and I think he'd be honored. He asked if I was doing the mural. I said no. He says, "Oh, too bad." But I think growing up during that, I think I'm older than you guys, but during that time, I'd seen him when he was working with Dr. King. But I think it's so cool to honor him in this fashion. And I think for the most part, Michigan State, I'll be very short, Michigan State during that time period, even though he told me that he wasn't allowed to, they were trying to block him to get access to housing, right? And we moved towards that. But I think Michigan State University was very liberal at the time, because you had Duffy Doherty, one of the few coaches, went after African-American football players and brought them to Michigan State. And he brought Reverend King to the campus to speak. And that was very, at that time was like, so I think it's very cool that we honor him like that. And I always like their definition and why they painted, the way they painted. I liked all the work, something like that, but I think it's very cool.
I think this is going to be a very difficult decision, because all 4 proposals were really thoughtful, as Julian said, and brought unique vision to the project. I'm not sure what to say at the moment. I'm not sure which one rises to the top, but I was really impressed with all 4 proposals.
Yeah, I want to say that this is a truly outstanding set of entries. with these finalists. So this is going to be really tough. And I love each one for different reasons, and each is really strong. So yeah, this is going to be a tough decision to make.
Well, we made the claim that we wanted something new and different, and we wanted different proposals. We definitely got 4 completely different proposals. Stylistically, it spans the spectrum. I would somebody start first. Again, I don't want to be the guy that leads everything here. I know it says chair next to my name for this, but the idea of me being a leader seems perverse. So
hard to be the leader, Alan.
I want to give you all a little reminder, because I know this is an overwhelming choice for you to make. We do have the ability to, the 3 artists that are not selected, their designs are ours for 1 year. So if we have another wall that we want to put the design on, then that's a conversation that we can have with another artist. And we don't have to do that right now. We can think about it and revisit it, but we do have those designs for the next year to work with. So if that takes
another point of, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, yes, I'm done.
I was going to ask if we are making the final choice, are we narrowing it down and asking for revisions, or what are our options for today?
So today you are choosing one to make your recommendation to the Arts Commission. That will go to Arts Commission on Thursday this week. And the Arts Commission will say, whoa, I can't believe you guys had to choose from these, but yeah, this one's great, we accept. And then from there, I will work on the contract with the artist. Once the contract is finalized and approved by council, then they'll come back to you with revisions. So if it's one of the ones that you've already made comments on, I'll suggest that the artists work on that before they come back to the first revision. But most likely what it'll be is an option for 2 revisions built into the contract. Ideally, the first one can come back in your June meeting, so we don't have to create a whole new meeting for that. And then from there, you can decide if you want another revision or if you're ready to go. So you'll have the final say on the design. And today you're making the recommendation for the one that you select. Does that help?
Well, I can just.
Well, it hurts too.
I know.
I guess I could just jump in here and say, as a person of color who lives in East Lansing, that, and as an artist, I really prefer seeing imagery of people of color. And so, because there's not much else, you know, like Julian did pretty much everything that is inclusive, you know, so far that we have on our walls. So I think it's essential that whatever we choose has actual human imagery of people of color. I love the humanity proposal. I thought it was thoughtful. I thought it was beautiful and brilliant, but 2 things about it didn't bring it to the top of the list for me. One is in its effort to be inclusive, it sort of was almost too inclusive. Like it's, I don't want to use terms like affirmative action or anything like that, but
I got something.
We need to compensate for the lack of imagery of people of color in this town. Like that's just something we have to do, and we have to do it yesterday. So that's how I feel about that. And then the others, it's like, wow, somebody needs to start with narrowing some of those down too. I don't know what other people think, but we've got what, a bajillion statues and murals of non inclusive, there's no one on a wheelchair. There's no one who's very clearly LGBTQIA plus. There's no one who is of color in any way that I've seen besides Julian's work. And so, I think that's out the gate. That's super important.
I would say I also like the humanity piece, but again, I think part of our request for proposals involved having, reference to Dr. Greene. It's not explicitly in there in the way that the other three are.
True.
And I think that for that reason, the point that we can put another mural up at some point in the next year, using one of these, that's a perfect addition to use somewhere else. And hopefully we have that opportunity with the amount of development happening in East Lansing right now. Because I think it's a great piece, but I think specific for this request for proposals, I think the other three are a little bit better suited. But I also still really like it. So I like the fact that we have access to it to use it at some point again soon, because I think it would be a tremendous piece for another area, but for this specific project, I favor the other three for that reason.
And I agree. I think the humanity piece is it's beautiful, and but it doesn't speak to exactly what we were asking for.
Hey, that's a much better way to put it.
Yeah, and I feel that it could be used in the next year in another spot, but for this proposal, it was not the strongest candidate that we have. And I would definitely like to see more faces. And I think the other three are much better candidates in that regard, especially given what we were asking for.
I agree with everything that was said without repeating it. The thing that I'll maybe add as a point of conversation, if we're looking at the next three, is that one of the proposals was more looking at kind of on an individual or domestic level, and the other two proposals were thinking about like the broader historical context, and but thinking about like that spectrum between them. And is that something that you want to discuss? But I thought all of the three with people were really dynamic. They were from the projected designs viewed well from the street level, the scale of the figures, the color. That would be the one thing that I would say, that if we go with Backpack's proposal, to have them consider the possibility of modifying the color somehow so that it would read better. But I'm not sure that I, at this point, know how to weigh in more heavily on one of the other three, because I thought they were all really strong. So I would support where the majority of the group wants to lean behind. I think they're all worthy and dynamic, and I could see any one of those three in that spot.
I have a question for Heather. I was curious when Dustin was talking about QR codes and being able to tag other items around town that would refer back to sort of the mural and a bigger history. Would we be actually able to do that?
So the initial QR code that's underneath the mural and the attached website that he referred to, we could definitely orchestrate. The rest of the items would be, or places would be, things that we would have to talk about. So for instance, one of the places that I would imagine would be kind of the historical marker that we're proposing to have put in front of Dr. Greene's house. That seems like a good place, and that's park property, so we could do that. Pinecrest Elementary, that's a really good idea. We would have to chat with the Pinecrest Elementary folks because that is not city property. So it would just depend on the place.
Yeah. Would that have to go before the school board, do you know?
I would think so,
Yeah.
especially if it's on the sign. And then there would need to likely be more information about it because people aren't well, they may begin to do kind of a scavenger hunt about it, and that could be something that we promote. But if you're just going to Pinecrest Elementary to drop your kindergartner off, you know, you're going to see a number on a sign and not even have time to think about it. So it'll have to be something that we would make a point of working with people to recognize if Pinecrest Elementary allowed that. And then just like I said, other places like City Hall, that would be fine. So if it's city property, the easy answer was, if it's city property, yes, we can facilitate that. If it's any place else, we would have to talk about it.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, because I like the idea of having like a greater educational context to things, but I just wasn't sure if that was even something that could be fully integrated with this art installation, or if it was something that we would have to deal with over the course of possibly a year.
Yeah, so initially when I read that proposal, I temporarily freaked out because having us have to build a website and then maintain it is a lot because we already have a citywide website. But then I saw that he had money set aside for someone, a web designer, to actually build that website. So as long as that is part of the proposal, we would be totally fine with that. We would just need access to be able to edit it from the city standpoint as necessary. But yeah, as long as someone else is creating it and we don't have to develop it, then that's the only other part that there was we're all
Okay,
set.
thank you.
So with backpacks, since we're struggling, I love that it was a very familiar thing, right? We all know Dr. King's image. We all know that black and white photography, and then it was up to date with the contemporary kind of geometric bright color around it. And then the newspaper brings it home, right? And then Dr. Greene. So I love that concept. I think it's really cool. And I think it's extremely accessible to the people here. The Dr. Greene one, that is just him isolated with all the imagery around it, with some parts being black and white. I loved that concept too, because it just says in your face, learn about this guy, right? Learn your history, people. And that's something that's really familiar to locals too. Now, the very intimate sun streaming in the window, like dining table scene, was incredibly powerful to me because it normalizes and makes intimate the Black experience in East Lansing. And I think that's what you want, you want to see something that is new and pulls people in. So I do like how accessible the other two are, because we're very used to murals. We're very used to learning about who's in those murals. And then these people are just people, right? And that's a very normal thing that's happening all around us, and we're not acknowledging it, and we never have. And so I love that the duo's proposal is really just an intimate scene. They're colorful. And then the concept of the QR code is like, okay, my kids would just freak out over that. Like, that is just so cool. But I mean, they're so great. All of them, all of these girls are so great. It's just,
I agree with you, actually. I'm trying to, I don't want to offer a lot of opinions. Like, I kind of want everybody else to give their opinions first, but like, if I had to rank them in ranked order, it's basically kind of where you were going at, to me. I thought that scene at the table is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And Okoye's is really good too. But that was just my take. And like I said, I don't want to push anybody in any direction. I prefer listening to everybody else first, because I feel like everybody else is, I could sit here and talk about like looking at art and what I like, but I feel like everybody else is better at it than I am. Maybe I offer some sort of like weird common person viewpoint. But I really want everybody else's takes. I really do. Like, give me like struggle with us. Figure out what's good here. Like, it's all good, but like, what is best? What's the one that we get to move forward?
You know, Dustin's, it's the attraction of the color, okay, and the codes. And I think the whole conversation about Pinecrest, I think it'd be very cool if once that is solved, and I'm pretty sure they'll grasp that. Most schools do. If you they find out you're an artist, they want you to come in, but I think that'd be a special connection right there. Him being and doing the work of the mural and being able to translate that to the school. Backpack, it just blows me away. Couple things, well, it's hard, but it's easy. We're all artists. I get that. We separate ourselves now because we are on the other side of the fence, selecting, right? So I think what appeals to us is just normal. Like I said, Backpack, and for me, it was Dustin's work. We suggested to Backpack that, I think bringing the work out from the background is very cool. He's very strong. The strong image of the work was seeing Dr. Greene and Dr. King. People would recognize that. And I think
right away, yep.
Just to add color would be such an easy task. So that's my take.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about that at all. Okay, so part of what I figure our job is to do is know what's best practices,
right,
know what's aesthetically sound, right? But then meet the people kind of where they're ready to go. And so that's why I bring up the issue of accessibility, because our town is not exactly, on the forefront of this sort of thing. And so I feel like Dustin's proposal was, oh, wow. I could picture it in New York, Seattle, no problem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
right away. And then the other two, I feel like our town is ready for that kind of imagery. It's like, do we want to push, you know what I'm saying? Are we pushing something new, or are we meeting them where we know they're ready to go? This has to happen. Inclusion has to happen, but how we see our job is the question. And so for me, I don't know what you guys think about making the selection, like how you are gonna prioritize anything. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting here like, ah.
Can I offer?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Sorry. I enjoy what Tedda said about normalizing ordinary Black lives. And I also appreciate what she said about recognizable figures that can help bring people, like meet them where they're at in our community. And if I'm kind of thinking about those two concepts, my top two proposals would be Backpack and Dustin's. And I'm not sure which is the top one yet, but I think like whichever one isn't chosen for this particular space, to prioritize the other for a secondary space sometime within this year. That would be my prioritization.
I wanted to say that I would really like people to see a mural and then want to know more about it. And right now I'm leaning to Nbusi's mural or Dustin's mural. And with Nbusi's mural, there's no getting around what the mural is about and who it is. My concern with Backpack's mural is that people will think that it is a Dr. King mural. and they're not going to investigate who the other figure is in the mural. And because Dr. King is just so recognizable, and I'm concerned that his figure is going to overwhelm Dr. Greene's. And so with Mbusi's mural, I feel like you have no choice but to see that this is a mural about Dr. Greene, who had a huge impact on our community. And I'm hoping that that will create, people will at least Google him and, you know, start reading about what his contributions to the East Lansing community were and have been and continue to be. So that's sort of my thoughts on that. I really enjoyed Dustin's mural and sort of the greater context, especially as we can look around town. But as far as like a Dr. Greene community mural, I feel like Mbusi's was so not subtle that it's basically telling people you need to know who this man is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I love that you said all of that, Meg, and it really makes this easier for me. Like just hearing that it's you've processed some of the stuff that we need to discuss. So I agree with what you said about Dr. King, and it's absolutely true. As soon as people see it, also every town has a Dr. King mural. So, you know, we're very used to it. Maybe we're beyond that, as you know, East Lansing is maybe beyond that. So as awesome as it is, I think the two top choices for me too are, I'm gonna mess up his name again. Okay, Okoye. Alan, help me.
I believe it's Okoye.
Okoye. Okay.
I could be wrong.
So that one.
Do not assume that what I'm saying here is gospel.
You
truth,
pronounced
okay?
it so fluidly the last meeting. I was like, he knows how to say it.
Listen, I'm incredibly mediocre. It's very possible that I'm wrong. Okay. I talk with confidence.
I think the Dr. King mural, like Meg was saying, you have no confusion over it, but there is still symbolism. So there's parts for those of us who are more intellectually curious or more sophisticated as far as artistic expression is concerned, but it is very direct. And I think that directness is really cool. And it has imagery. It's normalizing Black faces all at the same time. And then I think we're all so moved by all of them. Like we don't want to let any of them go. And we don't have to, apparently, for a year at least. I think Dustin's belongs in East Lansing too. But I think that the Dr. Greene proposal hits the mark. It hits it directly. It's accessible, it's inclusive, and it checks all the boxes that I think East Lansing needs as far as the public art consumption is concerned. And I think it meets people where they're comfortable, and it's very accessible, and they know what they're looking at, like Meg said.
I think another thing about Dustin's mural is that I think I would like that to be more intimate and located at a lower setting so that it's much more immediate. Whereas the very large Dr. Greene mural is, a great skyline kind of mural. And so I think it fits the space and the lack of subtlety that just the physical space of the mural needs.
True. And I like the idea. This is totally about a future possible mural. And we probably don't need to waste time talking about that. I'm sorry. But I think that Dustin's belongs where children, there's lots of foot traffic by children. I think that our kids need to see that mural. And I loved hearing him talk about growing up in what do you call those? I used to teach there, and
Spartan
he's
Village,
not
yep.
kidding. I mean, it was like United Nations, dude. Spartan Village, that's it. So amazing, so amazing. Anyway, I know that those are coming down, and they moved. I had a friend that was living there. They moved into some of those new buildings. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that one. It's so powerful. It is so beautiful. But I think that Okoye is what do they say these days? They say she knew the assignment. She knew it. He knew the assignment.
I can get on board with that. I mean, like I said, I thought all 3 of them were really fantastic. And so the one thing that I would suggest for NWC's proposal would be the red figures in the background that I explained them as kind of a nod to Dr. King and his wife, that if those could maybe gel a little bit more, instead of being so abstract, because I think they do read as more just like landscape forms. But yeah, I'm on board with NWC's as the selection, pending some just final subtle modifications.
I wish we could do a QR code with that one too, actually. I think that would be, I love the QR code idea. I was immediately attracted to that. I wish that I could volunteer Dustin's mural to be like a 6x6 mural, or not 6x6, but it was rectangular, like 6x10 mural at, at the elementary school. Like, I wish I could just demand that happen and it occur.
Right, or the Hannah Center.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. It's absolutely perfect for that. You're right. Because I love it too. To me, of the 4 pieces, as far as like which one is aesthetically my favorite, that's my favorite one. But you have convinced me strongly that I think Okoye is the best for that specific spot. It's so direct, it's so obvious. Like you said, you're sitting at a table eating food, you look up and you just put in the name in Google on your smartphone. Like, there's no question as to what it is or what's going on. Like, you know what the deal is. Yeah, I'm on board with that. I'm convinced.
Julian?
Oh, I agree. I'm getting old in my because listening to Meg, she convinced me. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I wasn't thinking, because I had 2 selections. I already told you, but once that was, talked about, and his work, Greene, boom, right. So you don't have to do. I'm with Teresa. Like, I think the outer edges that could be explained and done a little bit more, but I loved all 3 of them. Like I said, I really love Dustin. And see, we gave ourselves a way out. We're talking about there's another space.
Thank you, Heather.
I mean, look, I almost suggested we just do all 4 of them in blocks.
Funny.
Right?
Balances. You're right. I'm with Alan. Like, I sat back and I thought about it. And if you asked me an hour ago, it was backpack, Dustin, boom. But looking at O's work, there's no hesitation and there's no explanation. There's right that. And the attraction would be right there. So that's my take. Like I said, we gave ourselves a way out. There's another thing that we could put, whether it be at the Hannah Center, which would be cool. And like, when he was talking, like, dude, I'm sitting at Spartan Village right now. I worked for a United Parcel Service. I know what I'll probably deliver to your apartment. The Spartan Village was built, and a long time ago, where if you lived upstairs, they had the doors open because it was so hot in December, right? It was so enclosed. And I knew what he was talking about. I felt his connection about what he was talking about, but his piece with the codes just connected. So There you
Yeah, I agree that I love how community based
Right.
his mural was.
Right. So Meg, you convinced me. Shame on you. So yeah, I think O's piece it'd be fantastic. Now that we have another space, I think Dustin's would fit that too, especially communicating and connecting with our elementary students.
Heather, just for the record, because I know you're probably sitting there going, what about the money? If you need help with me, like trying to, I'll volunteer to like help try and find art grants so we can get more of this stuff up. I'm serious. Like, as much as I don't have any time, I'll just make it. Like, I can get some coffee going and, 11, 12, 1 in the morning, we can knock this out.
We got to call it other things like fire safety and infrastructure, because it's essential, right?
Yeah.
It keeps me from being an arsonist to have Julian's work. That's what, that's how that goes.
So I appreciate that. Right now, because of the Public Art Fund, money is not our limiting factor.
Oh.
Walls are a limiting factor. So
does Hannah not have a wall available?
Hannah's a great idea. We have to get the community on board with that first. So
if the community doesn't buy into that, I don't know what they will buy into. I'll be honest, because that thing is that's out of this world.
I would love to have a mural on the side of my building, but you would have to bring it up with the landlord. But it's a huge side of the building right next to Harper's parking lot, super visible.
Oh, that is. I think I called that guy when I was on the Arts Commission. Anyway,
so if I just want to reread the goal of the original RFQ for the mural, just to make sure that we're all still thinking the same way before you make your vote, if that's all right.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so the vision for the project. The mural should capture the key role that downtown plays in East Lansing. It should embody the character of East Lansing and reflect the sense of the community that is celebrated downtown. The mural should celebrate the city's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, the importance that art plays in defining a sense of place and community, and the diversity of the East Lansing community. In addition to this, a focus specifically on social justice and civil rights moments and movements that happened in East Lansing should be included. So I just wanted to say that again before we made the final vote, just in case anybody had any thoughts about that.
Just find us 3 more walls and we'll be good to go.
Okay, all right.
But in the meantime, I think we kind of come to. Do we all basically agree? We've all come to a conclusion. Julian,
yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Meg, Tetta. Okay, Jesse, are you there? Jesse is. Oh, I see a video.
I am, yes. Sorry.
Do you have anything? Do you have anything you want to say to us?
No, my phone like literally just started ringing as soon as I answered it. No, I think this has been really fun to watch you guys process through this. Kind of glad I'm not a voting member of this panel because your decision was really hard. Feeling like mildly self-congratulatory about initiating this kind of more artist-led process, because I really feel like the whole idea behind this kind of the second round of applications where we did sort of the compensated round where we paid them for their time was to get a higher caliber of contributions, and like I feel like that happened really strongly. So I'm very excited that kind of like looking forward to East Lansing art in the future and thinking like things look pretty good. So yeah, I love the one that you guys settled on. I also agree that we need to find a wall for Dustin's. I share that building with Meg. If we could have it on the side of our building, I would be super psyched. I don't know, you got to talk to our landlord about that. There's also a big long wall in the alley on the back of the new Target, which again, we would have to talk to that landlord, but that's a really big blank wall. So yeah, I think we can start to rustle it up. And I think getting some community engagement and showing like, here's the mural that we want to place, we need a place for it, will be kind of a fun process to see if we can get more engagement, as opposed to sort of reverse engineering that. But yeah, no, I'm super excited.
And don't leave Backpack and Ann. They're both of their items are really good too. And if we can
Yeah, I
figure
mean,
out a
I think
spot for
all
them.
4 of them could find Teta. I think we when you were on the Arts Commission, we were talking about that big ugly water tank over by Potter Park. That humanity one, I think, would be just like gorgeous on that. I don't remember why we couldn't put a mural there, but
I see Teresa has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering about backpacks, if there could be something with the library, thinking about the libraries and archives, like if that,
Ooh.
I assume they're not city property, but that might be a good place to.
library is kind of a weird gray area because they control their own budget and facilities. I think they are technically city property, but it all goes through the library board. But I also am the liaison to the library board. So
Oh, well, then bring it to them for
initiate that
sure.
Yes,
conversation
please.
for you.
Please do.
Yep.
They seem very, very interested.
No, I think that the library is talking a lot. They actually, at their last meeting, were just talking about their posting policies and their art policies since they've started doing these installations on the front of the building, since people don't have as much access to the inside of the building. So I think, you know, and Kristen Shelley's been involved, I believe, with the Robert Greene committee that's working with the Pinecrest stuff. She's at least been kind of in the conversation. I don't know if she's on the actual committee, but I think that, you know, yeah, absolutely. Let's talk to everybody.
Okay.
Guys, it was
So
fun
I
to listen
think-
to the conversation. I thought it was thoughtful and great. So
Thank you. I appreciate all you've been able to help out with, and I'll see you at some point soon.
I'll keep
We'll talk
I'll
again.
keep working on it.
Sounds awesome. All right, so I propose that we go ahead then. I would like to move to, I guess, what's the term that we want to use here? We're moving forward to suggest to the arts. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a suggested motion on the agenda if you want to
Oh.
share that again, Liam. You don't have to do it exactly, but there's a.
Okay, that works really well because I'm like on page 35 right now, so I just want to make sure I have this correct. So I then move to recommend, I believe it's Ndubisi Okoye, to the East Lansing Arts Commission to be selected as the artist to design and implement the downtown mural on the outside east wall of 218 Albert Avenue, East Lansing, Michigan 48823. Teresa, did you want to throw in the suggestion about possibly?
Oh, yeah, I can. I think we need a second, then we can discuss, and I can add, we can just.
Second.
Got a second, and then
Yeah,
do we want
seconds. So if discussion is open, and I would make a friendly amendment to prioritize the other 3 artists for spaces in East Lansing.
Did you want to amend anything about or is it going to get kicked back to us?
Oh, I think that's
afterwards?
part of the normal process.
Okay, I just wanted to double check on that part too. So, because I know you wanted about the background area.
Yeah,
the red
does that
figures.
have to be part of the motion, Heather, or is that, since it's part of the normal process?
No, it doesn't need to be a part of, this is just selecting the artist, and then we'll
Okay.
go through the revisions, but I'll share that with him initially, so he's got a heads up, so
Okay.
that'll be part of our contracting process.
Okay. And I second your amendment about prioritizing the other 3 designs for use somewhere else here in East Lansing. Okay, so we go ahead and vote then, Heather, I assume. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 5-0. So we're going ahead with Mr. Okoye's proposal. I want to thank everybody for coming up today and joining the Art Selection Committee in the first place, so that we have 5 people. It's fantastic. And everybody here is great. And wow, we got good proposals.
Yeah.
Did we ever? if this is what we could look forward to in the future as far as proposals to come forward to the city of East Lansing, I don't know what we're going to do. Hopefully we end up with even more money in our budget from Heather, and we can find all the public space and art and walls we can to cover them, because there's no shortage of talent, especially here within the state of Michigan, much less the country. Could be happier. I honestly could not be happier. This is
Me too.
awesome stuff. So I move then to close the meeting.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor of closing the meeting?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Love you guys.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
see everybody when we look at revisions and such later.
Very cool.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.